Okay. Hello. Who are we interviewing today?
My name is Gary Cliffe.
Hi, Gary. Okay, just a few warm-up questions just so people get to know a little bit about you and also just to break the ice. What do you think's more valuable, an academic education or common sense?
Common sense.
Good answer. What do you prefer, a comfortable answer or the whole truth?
The whole truth.
And do you believe that we're told the truth about the world we live in all the time?
No.
So you agree that there's a lot of disinformation out there?
Yes, definitely.
Brilliant. And if you were researching something yourself, where would you get your information from? Where would you look for a valuable source kind of thing?
It's mostly the internet.
Good. So you don't just get programmed by the television, you try and get third and fourth parties. It's because I guess you agree that television can be used as a mass weapon of distraction.
Correct.
It's like we learn that just the lighting and the speed of the light can put us into a hypnotic state where we're open to suggestion and we're very focused because we're so comfortable in our own house, so that we're kind of open to suggestion and we haven't really got our critical thinking cap on, so we don't really question what we're being presented. I guess our defences are down. You'd agree with all that, yeah?
Correct.
Brilliant. Well, I'm trying to get people to question the reality that we're presented with. In a world of marketing, lies, propaganda, disinformation, and just fake news, have you ever been brainwashed, manipulated, programmed?
Brainwashed, yeah, you could say that.
Good, because a lot of people say they haven't, and I'm straight away like, well, how would you know? So great, it looks like you've got an open mind. I mean, do you believe it's ever okay to suppress information and keep secrets from the public, or should we have complete transparency?
No, you should never keep secrets.
Not that involve the public. If it involves us, we should know about it.
Definitely.
And we'll learn how to deal with it rather than denying it. Yeah, great. And on a scale of 1 to 10, how open-minded are you to listen to something that conflicts with what you believe to be true?
I like the truth, really. I want to know the truth about everything.
So from 1 to 10, how open-minded are you?
I am 10 open-minded.
10?
Yeah.
Are you okay if we put that to the test?
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, what shape would you say the Earth is?
Right, some people say it's not round, but...
You've heard of that pear shape, oblique,
yeah.
spheroid and all that kind of stuff. I mean, the people that say that are like Neil deGrasse Tyson, somebody that works for NASA.
Yeah.
But my question is, why do we believe what they say? Have we got any proof that's consistent with your own experiences to say that the Earth is pear-shaped or oblique?
It's only what they tell us and what we see.
Thank you. What do we see?
We see a round ball.
Where?
Up in the sky, and that's...
So we're presented with some images and stuff. I get that. Yeah. Well, we've made 15 repeatable scientific observations, which I'm going to give you afterwards. I'm just going to read them through quickly and see what kind of response you get, because I believe that a lot of it's programmed response and not actual experience. So my question to you would be, do things drop because of gravity or because of density?
Gravity.
Well, the theory of gravity has actually never been proven, hence why it's called a theory of gravity. A gentleman called Henry Cavendish claimed to have made an observation in the 17th century, but to date, that experiment with the 2 lead balls has never been repeated, yet it's still the basis of much of the science that's taught in schools. So we're taught about gravity from an experiment done in the 17th century that nobody's been able to repeat. Where I say, well, we can observe density because a drop of rain drops, yet when it heats up it evaporates. So the density of the water determines whether it's going up or down. Why doesn't the gravity affect it when it's in the state of steam? Because it's less dense. I could say the same thing about a helium balloon. The helium's less dense than the air, so it rises up. Just like smoke, there's metal particles, heavy metals in the smoke, yet they raise up. Where's the gravity? So far I can only observe density. Do you agree on that? It's not a proven thing, it's just something that explains why people in Australia don't fall off the bottom. And as well, nobody's ever managed to get water to conform to the exterior of a ball. We all know that water has to be contained, yet we believe that water's flowing evenly around a ball that's shooting through space because we're told and we're shown some images. But I'll ask you, do you know that there's no actual footage of a rocket leaving the atmosphere? We see them taking off, we see the digital graphic images when they're in space, but we never see the rocket leaving the atmosphere going into the vacuum. Now, considering this is one of the biggest explorations of the history, you think that they'd record everything, wouldn't you? Well, we're starting to think that the moon landing, the rocket launches, and the spacewalks are all fake, because just like in Coronation Street, you never see them do a 360 turn because the fourth wall is the studio wall. With all the evidence of bubbles coming out of the helmets, no stars in the background, seeing people on strings and ladies' hair being stuck out with hairspray not really moving freely, yet gentlemen's hair not moving when they're in the International Space Station, it's kind of proven that they've forged a lot of material. And we all have a suspicion that the moon lands were fake. So why do we think that that company turned honest? To beat that claim that I've just made, there's no real photographs of Earth from space. This is admitted on NASA's website. They're all called images. And when one of the employees of NASA was questioned why are they called images, his name is Robert Simmons, and it's all written here for you to go and check yourself. I don't expect you to believe anything I'm saying, but I'd like you to check it up on the internet as a good reference later. Robert Simmons was giving an interview, and he says, we can't take photos because we're not far away, we can't get far away enough, so we have to take many photos from high altitude. And he is employed to knit those photos together on a ball vector on Photoshop, where he admits he knits them together, he adds different colours to make them more look realistic, and he adds clouds to give it a look that we're accustomed to. So, supposing that I'm right and you find this interview from a NASA employee saying that there is no real images from space, it begs the question, then there can't be any real videos either. Because if they can't take a photo, then that means all the videos of Earth spinning can't be real either, because they could have just taken a photo while it's spinning. So if we don't have any real photos or images, why do we think it's a ball? Now, when you see one of them videos of it spinning, you look at the clouds and you'll see the clouds don't move. Yet if it quarter spin is 6 hours, the clouds should be completely different. So you can check up all this. Now the third little observation, the fourth, is you must have heard about the experiment that when a boat's sailing away, it goes over the horizon. Just like if you're lucky to get a sunset over sea, it goes over the horizon, we're told. Well, a very simple experiment that I've done is you get a good camera and you zoom in on that boat or that setting sun, and because the vanishing point is further away with a stronger lens, you will see the whole boat reappear, proving it hasn't gone over a curve. Just like a sun, if you zoom in on a setting sun, you will see it's not setting, it's going further away, disappearing into the vanishing point like railway tracks and corridor walls and ceilings. They go into a centre point, vanishing point. It's perspective. So I beg you to do that experiment when you've got a camera and you see a boat disappearing, zoom in on it. And even better than that, because that's only like 10-12 miles, when you're on Benidorm beach getting some sun, you'll actually see the buildings of Alicante, which are 20 miles away at seafront. Now, mathematically, over 20 miles, if we were on a sphere, whatever pear-shaped sphere you want to call it, there would be an approximate drop of 80 meters over 20 miles. Now I say approximate because you might not be a perfect sphere. Funny enough, all the images from space are perfect spheres. We never see a pear shape, so that's a little contradiction alone, but here's my point. If mathematically there has to be a drop, but your observation, with or without a camera, sees the whole buildings from top to bottom are not hidden behind an 80 meter drop, and we know that water always finds its level, so if water doesn't bend no matter what distance, and the Earth is covered with 70% water, how can we be on a ball? Yeah. Interesting. According to the physics of a ball, it would have to bend down in every direction. Yet when I look inland, I see mountains going up. So when does it compensate? So scientifically, we can't find any curve, and we can't find anything hidden behind any curve. So we're saying if there's no curve, we've been lied to. But we'll get there, because you'll probably think, yeah, but I've seen the Red Bull skydiver with that Felix Baumgartner, who was about 24 miles up above New Mexico. You remember that jump, yeah?
Yeah.
We all saw it. It was live, very convincing. Well, I ask you to go on YouTube again and watch the official recording of that. As soon as the video starts, he opens the door and we see two things. We see a horizontal horizon without any bend. Okay, it's just looking through the door, but we're also seeing the horizon at eye level. Now at 24 miles up, you'd imagine that you'd have to look down to find the horizon, because if you're on a ball, it'd be curving down in every direction. The higher you go, the further you'd have to look down. Now, you might not be lucky enough to do that Red Bull jump yourself, or go up on a hot air balloon, but I beg on your flight home to the UK that you look out the left window and the right window simultaneously, and you will see the horizon at eye level out of the left window and the right window, proving that it's not curving down from you. So that's a really simple experiment. So far, do I sound crazy, or is all this stuff...
Makes sense.
It makes sense, because you've been taught not to trust your senses.
Yeah.
Yet your senses have helped you survive until this day.
Yes.
So I say do trust your senses and don't trust the authorities.
Yeah.
We're nearly done. We're told that stars are further than 20 trillion miles away. You've heard that one, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you get a decent enough camera and you can make a video zoomed in, you play that video back on your computer in slow motion, and you will see that it's definitely not fire, because it's changing colour. And it's definitely not distortion from being so far away, because you can see the stars making symbols, geometric kind of flashes when it twinkles. So I would love that you look at stars with a camera and check for yourself that they've lied to us about the shape of the Earth, or at least the size. They're lying to us about how far stars are away and what they are, possibly because they don't want us to get inspired by them. I'm not sure, that's my own theory. But we're told that the Earth's moving in 3 different directions. It's spinning on its axis at 1,000 miles per hour. It's orbiting the sun at 66,000 miles an hour. And don't forget, the sun's hurtling around the Milky Way at 500,000 miles an hour. You've heard all that before, yeah? Well, how come at least 10,000 years ago, when they built the pyramids in Egypt, South America, you know, the Aztecs, the Mayans, they did calendars showing us the star signs. They even lined up the pyramids to certain stars in Orion's belt. Now 10,000 years have gone by, and Orion's belt is still in line with the pyramids. The stars of Orion's belt are still in line with each other. Now if the stars are suns shooting around their galaxies in their own directions, and we're shooting around our galaxy, in 10,000 years there'd be some disfigurement to the constellations, the zodiac signs. Surely there'd be measurable difference in 10,000 years if we're going 500,000 miles an hour. So I can pretty much tell you we aren't moving, because if there's no measurable proof in 10,000 years, it's probably that we are solid still like the Egyptians, the Mayans, the Aztecs, and even the Bible says we are solid, probably in the centre, and everything moves around us as it appears to. You see the sun and the moon, they appear the same size and they appear to move over us. Well, I'll ask you, why do you think the yin-yang sign exists? Because maybe the ancients understood that the sun and the moon are a positive and a negative impulse into our atmosphere, which is a big atom, of which the Earth is the nucleus, because this moon, which is another experiment, can be measured with a thermostat in a glass of water. Moonlight is colder than moon shade of the moonlight. Put a glass of water in shade of the moonlight, put a glass of water in the moonlight, give it 10-15 minutes, and with a thermostat for £10, you'll see that moonlight's cold. Now, if moonlight was a reflection of the sun, it would either be a little bit warm or neutral, but it wouldn't be cold. So that's another scientific observation that I'd love you to check for yourself. Don't take my word for it. Last ones. We know that aeroplanes travel 500 miles an hour. Now, if the Earth is spinning 1,000 miles an hour eastwards, and we know that flights go east and west with similar durations, how can we fly eastwards at 500 miles an hour if the Earth's spinning at 1,000 miles an hour? Doesn't make sense. And how come when they fly over the North Pole, if it's a 12-hour flight, surely in 12 hours they'll land back where they started? Do you understand me?
Yeah.
So that's another little contradiction. Now you could say, oh, well, pilots can't all be in on it. Pilots were taught to respect a gyroscope and the artificial horizon. So once they're level, they tell you can take your seatbelt off. Now that proves that they're not dipping their nose every few miles to account for the curvature of the Earth. Because if they were dipping their nose, you'd have to keep your seatbelt on. And they have to dip their nose if they're going down to Australia because it's on the other side of the ball, and the gyroscope would be upside down from where it started, but it's not. So again, scientific observation can tell us that. And I think the last one, another little observation you can make is simply when you see a half moon in a blue sky, if you know that that's in the east or the west, and you can judge the sun is opposite, so if the sun is coming up in the east and the moon is going down in the west, or vice versa, and you're only seeing half a moon, that proves that it's not a reflection of the sun. Because if it was a reflection of the sun, not only would it not be cold, but if the moon is facing us, which it always is, we only see one face of the moon, which questions is it a ball, but if we're seeing the same face of the moon always, and it's in the west, we're supposedly in the middle, that's in the east, they're aligned. We're underneath them, they're both above our horizon, nothing's between them to cause that moon shadow. So I ask you to make these observations yourself. I'm going to give you this paper, and just think before I let you go, the reason we're doing this, did you know that NASA alone, because there's many space agencies around the world, NASA gets $18 billion a year. Now that's 52 million a day. Now, with all the poverty and problems in the world, I'm sure you'd agree that that money could be better spent. Woo! Thank you. And I also wonder if by limiting our understanding of where we are, don't you think that could maybe affect our understanding of who we are and what we're supposed to be doing with our lives? Maybe make us a little bit easier to manipulate, more materialistic. We don't realise our connection within this beautiful place that we're in, because we've been told we can ruin it, piss off to Mars, start up again, you know? Well, do I have your permission to upload this to the internet?
Yes, you have.
Thank you so much. I really hope that I've got you thinking about this stuff, and
Yes, you have.
once you've had a little research for yourself, I'm hoping that like a virus, this becomes contagious.
Yeah.
And that you'll do what we're doing and wake people up to the deception. We've got to trust our senses and stop trusting the famous people and famous brands that are keeping us dumbed down.
No, you're right.
Thank you so much.
Thank
It's been a
you.
pleasure.
Yes.
And do have a good look at them aeroplane windows on your way home.
I'll do that on my way back.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.